So today's video we are going to have a look at some slow stitch spirals. Hi everybody, it's Sarah from Homfray Embroidery. Jonathan and I are just back from our holiday, so if you're a regular watcher and you're wondering where you've been, we had a week off. So we have missed a few weeks of videos, but we're back and we're nice and relaxed. So we thought we'd just kick things off again with some nice relaxed slow stitching just to get us back into the swing of things. Something I recommend everybody should be doing. If you don't know what it is, do check out my video on what slow stitching is and how to do it, and I show you in this little project here lots of information about slow stitching and the sort of origins of it and what it is and how you can get started in it. So check that one out. And if you want to know some stitches that you can use for your slow stitching projects, way up, that's 5 simple stitches to get you going in slow stitching. And this is great as well if you're just beginning embroidery too. These are some really good stitches to know, so check that one out as well. So today I thought we'd just add another stitch to that 5 stitches for slow stitching, so a nice mindful embroidery technique, and this is a really mindful stitch to go with it, and this is what we are going to do today. So here's a little spiral. This is a project that I am working on, and I will show you more of this when I have finished it probably, but there's a little bit of it here, and here's one of these spirals. It's just a spiral of running stitch, so just one stitch only, really super simple stitch, and we're just going to make a shape out of it. And what's really nice about this spiral is it adds real weight to the fabric, so if you're stitching your fabrics together, suddenly it feels really quite stiff and it gives it some real weight to the fabric. It's lovely, it really feels really beautiful to touch that. There's another little one there, so I've gone straight over the lace to the fabric, and there's another little one going on over here. They're quite meditative spirals, and once you sort of start in the middle you can just keep going, and it's really nice, and they're not difficult to do at all. So we're going to have a look at those. So I'm going to show you a few different variations of these spirals and what you can do with them. We're going to start with the simplest one. It's just a freehand one in the sort of spirit of slow stitching, if you like. We're just going to freehand it. We're not going to worry about what size it is and how long the stitches are and all that sort of thing. We're just going to enjoy that feeling of the actual stitching. So I'm going to start with that one. But if you do want a circle, a spiral particular size, I'm going to show you a few techniques that you can use to determine where you put your circle, your spiral on your work, and how big it is. So I'll show you a few of those as well, and then some things that you can do with those spirals and circles. And then I've got some pieces to show you with these actually on the pieces, so you can see how I've used them in my own pieces of slow stitching. So we've got a few bits of fabric I'm just going to demonstrate on. In no particular reason I've chosen these colours, but just nice and pale so that you can see it on the camera. And I'm going to have a go with this sashiko thread. Now if you saw my video about some things that I bought from the knitting and stitching show last year, this is one of them. I got some sashiko threads and I'm going to try it, and I can't tell you what the make is. So don't speak Japanese. So maybe if Kana is watching, hi Kana, maybe Kana can help us out and tell us what that says and what brand that is. It just says sashiko thread, 100% cotton on the bottom, but it's got some beautiful colours in it. So I'm going to try that one out on this spiral. And what I'm going to do for this is I'm not going to draw anything. I'm not going to mark anything on it. I'm just going to jump straight onto the fabric with my thread. So I put a knot in the back. I'm just going to come up from the back, roughly where I think the middle of the fabric is. I'm going to put a knot in the end first. Need a holiday. I'm going to do it that way. Makes a nice small knot. Right, let's try that again. This is why we're easing back into it, nice and gently. Right, there we go. So I've come up roughly where I think the middle of that square is. And what we're going to do to get started, I'm going to make kind of little triangular stitches. So I'm just going to do a tiny little short stitch like that. I'm going to do a little triangle. So a little space. This is a running stitch that's going to go back and forth through the fabric. Doesn't get more complicated than that. So kind of 2/3 of a triangle, like so. And then the third one is going to make the other part of the triangle, but we're just going to aim over the top of it because what we want to do is go round in this spiral. If I join that up, I've done a little circle or a triangle. So we want to start going round, and initially it won't look like a spiral. It'll look like a bit of a mishmash of random stitches, but trust it and it will turn into a spiral the further round we go. And I'm liking this thread already. It's a beautiful thread. So I'm just going to take a little stitch forward each time, little space in between, and you'll notice I'm coming up and down in 2 movements. We can do this method when we get a little bit further around the circle, but just to start it I find this is nicer. It's a bit more accurate and you can get more of the stitch on top and less of a gap in it, and I think for these spirals they look nicer if the stitches are just that little bit closer together. And then I'm just going to keep going around that previous row of stitches, and that spiral will start to show. Not worrying too much about the length of my stitches and whether they're the same. I've done quite a few of these, so it'll probably come out quite similar, just because that's practice for you folks. So a smaller gap than the length of the stitch, so you can see more of that thread on the top. And you can just see I'm going round the outside, because we're spiraling, that will just continue. We don't ever get to the end. I'm doing circles, which I will show you in a bit. And I'm doing this in my hand. Slow stitching is nice in your hand just because you get to feel the fabrics and the threads. If you do struggle though to hold it in your hand, if you've got any mobility problems with your hands, you can put this in a frame. It's absolutely fine. Do whatever you need to do to be comfortable. Slow stitching is about being present and being in the moment and feeling your materials and your threads. And if your hands are hurting, then you're not achieving that mindfulness. So if you need to put it in a frame, put it in a frame. You could make your backing fabric a little bit bigger. You could put that in the frame and you could cut it down afterwards if you wanted to. It's not quite the right size. You can see the beautiful colours of that thread coming through now. So it is as simple as that. I just want to do a tiny bit more so you can see how that spiral looks and where it is on the fabric, because that's what I want to address next. So I'm going to stitch around there a few more times and then show you what that looks like. You can really see that spiral effect start to take shape when I do a little bit more. They look really beautiful and I wish you could feel it. Because that feels so nice. It just turns a floppy piece of fabric into something really nice to hold and to touch. And I just want to show you at this point the running method. Now I quite like going through to the back and coming back up in 2 moves because you get a little bit more control over it. But you can do it in a sashiko kind of method. So that's a running stitch and you put lots of stitches on the needle at once, like so. You need to do this in your hand. You can't do this if you've got on a frame, because you can see how I'm manipulating that fabric so that it bends, and then you just pull that through and you get lots of stitches in one go. And I do find sometimes the gap is a little bit big and the stitch a little bit shorter that way, but is another way of doing it if you want to do that way and have more stitches on the go at once. And you can just see it starting to pucker just a little bit, so keep your tension nice and loose on it, nice and relaxed. If you're stressed and you're doing these, that'll all scratch up. So maybe they're good for de-stressing. Actually, you can start off nice and tight and then you'll get loose as you go around. So just make sure you keep that nice even tension, and that's what they look like on the top. And then you have to decide where you want to finish it. It won't ever meet up. It's a spiral. It'll just keep going. So you just decide where the last one is that you want to do, and then to finish your thread, just turn it over on the back. And now I've got 2 pieces of fabric in here, a backing fabric and a top fabric, and I'm just going to weave that underneath the backing fabric only. Just check it's not gone through the other side. And you can do that a couple of times if you want. If you only got 1 layer of fabric or you're worried about it showing, you can just go underneath the stitches only, just to finish that thread off. Like so, and that's come out pretty much in the middle there of that piece of fabric, but it might not. So you've got to start in the middle, but you've got to measure it accurately if you want it to come out in a particular position. So I'm going to show you now how you can decide exactly where your circle sits. So I'm going to show you this spiral now, and this is from the outside to the inside, but I just want to mention this one because this one I've gone inside out, and I don't know if you can see that just sticks up a little bit there, and it doesn't with this one. So there is a difference between the two, and I just want to mention with this one as well, if you're not confident on starting and those little middle short stitches are a bit confusing, you think, oh, I can't quite get it going, you can just draw yourself a tiny little circle. Now I've used a water erasable pen to do that, so this will come off just with a little bit of water in a brush. That's a brush with some water in it, or just a brush and a pot of water. You don't need a special brush, and that will just lift that pen off and you won't see it. So if you want to, just draw yourself a little circle in the middle just to get yourself started for your first 2 stitches, then that can help you to do that. So that's how I've done that one. It's come out quite nice and neatly. If you start in the middle neatly, the rest of it follows on. So that is another thing you can do if you're not confident at starting that freehand. But I want to show you this one, because if you wanted to choose where your spiral sits on your piece of work, or you wanted it a particular size and you don't start in the middle and find you've gone off the edge when you didn't want to, you can start from the outside and you can work inwards. So the one we've just done, we've gone inside to out, and I'm going to go outside to in. So I've actually drawn myself a circle, and you can see that here, and I've left the blue pen on so that you can see what I actually did. So that is that pen again that you can see there, and I've drawn myself nearly complete circle, and then I've started on the outside, and I will show you this in a second. So we come around the outside, and just before we meet up again, we're going to just veer off and go inside and spiral inwards. So let me show you how to do that. So you need something to draw around. Got some inside of some sticky tape things here. You can use a compass. I've got some actual circle templates here. This one's broken. But you can use that actual circle template if you have one of those. Just find yourself something nice and round to draw around that's the size that you want to use. And I will just mention at this point as well, is you can make yourself a paper template. If you don't have anything the right size, or you're not confident, you don't want to draw straight onto your fabric, you can use a pattern for it, a paper template. And you can just cut that out in paper, and you can pin that in place, and you can go around that with your stitching if you want. So paper template is really good if you don't want to draw straight onto your fabric. You can also use a friction pen if you want to. This comes off with heat as well, so I just wanted to mention that one in case you've got some friction pens. I know they're quite popular in the stitching world as well, so you could use that one that comes off with heat. To get it off with heat, you're going to need to iron it, to make sure that whatever you're working on can be ironed, like you haven't got any plastic sequins in there or something like that that's going to melt your iron. So a friction pen is also a possibility. I'm going to stick to my water erasable one, and I'm just going to draw around this here. Now if I wanted my circle down in the corner of something, or up there, or over here, or off centre, you can choose now the size of your circle and where it goes. So I'm just going to stick it slightly off centre, and then you can either draw all the way around it, or you could just do like a little dotted line around it. This pen is nice and fine, and I know that will come off. So now I know that's where my spiral is going to sit. I'm going to stitch this in a perlé thread. So this is a perlé number 8. It's a variegated one. Variegated ones are really nice for spirals because you get that colour coming through. And if you want to know about variegated threads, then we have a video all about that. What they are, what the differences between them are as well, and how to use them and how to get the most out of them. So do check that one out. Want to know how I did that knot? Trap it between your thumb and your finger. Needle goes over the top of the thread, round twice, pull it back down, push the needle through, and that gives you quite a fine knot to start with. So now we're going to start on the edge. We're going to go round the outside, so immediately you've got your nice long stitches that you can work, and again you can do this in that running motion if you want to. It's a bit easier when your circle's a little bit bigger, your spiral's a bit bigger. I'm not trying to get lots of small stitches in a small space. So you can do it that way, or you can go up and down, whichever suits you. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch around about 3/4 of it, and as I get around here I'm going to start just to come in. It's not an exact science, and if any mathematicians out there know how to draw a spiral, this is probably not the way to do it. But this is okay for slow stitching. This is all we need. So round here, and I'm just going to come off the line and start to come inside, and then once I'm inside I've got another row to follow. So I only need to do that circle once. That's just going to get me going. So I'm going to stitch around to about here, and then I'll show you that next part. I'm going to draw this next part in with the pen. You don't need to do this, but I want you to see what it is that I am doing. So we're just going to come off, and I want to be about that distance apart, like so, and then that will just follow, ends come off, follow that around, and then once you're back inside another row of stitching, you can just follow that. Like I say, you don't need to do that bit, but I just want to show you the principle of it. You can do it if you find that helps. So now you're not worrying about the position of your circle, because you've already determined that by the outside, and you can just now enjoy going round and round into the centre. You can go as far into the centre as you want. You don't have to go all the way into the middle if you don't want to. I'll show you some on my samples shortly where I haven't done that. You can choose how far in you go, and you can change colours if you like. Really lovely to do once you start doing these. I'm putting them on everything. They're nice to do, and you don't have to do it in the threads I've done it. I've done perlé and sashiko. You can use stranded cottons and flosses. You can use silks, use metallics, whatever you like for this. Just enjoy this stitching. So now I'm on that inside, so I'm just going to be aware of keeping that distance roughly the same all the way around now. And that will just bring me into the middle of the spiral naturally. I don't need to draw anything else on, measure anything. Just keep that distance roughly the same all the way around. I will get to the middle eventually, and the more you do these, the more even your stitches will become, so don't worry too much about whether they're the right length. Don't take anything out. Slow stitching. You can see that spiral starting to come now, and just inside all the way to the middle. So I shall get that one finished now, and then I'll show you what else you can do with this stitch. So that's what this one looks like when you've gone all the way into the middle there, and as I said, I've left that on just so you can see, but all I need to do to remove that is get my water. You could spray it lightly with a small spray bottle, or just dip a paintbrush in some clean water, make sure it's clean, and then you can just get rid of that, and nobody will know your secret. I'll go, wow, how did you get that circle so circular? You'll say it's magic. I'm talking about now. So outside to in just helps you determine what size your spiral is and where you put it. I've mentioned this one here with just starting with a small one in the middle if you find that difficult. This is a freehand one which is done without drawing any on. They do look a little bit different, I think, but I quite like that. Quite like the spontaneity of that one. And then I just want to show you these two as well, because this is what else you can do with this stitch. So you could draw yourself a circle around something, might even be around that. And then you can just do circles, so rather than spirals, just circles, and you put your first circle in. It doesn't matter what size that one is, whether it's this outer one or the inner one or the middle one. Once you've got one in, it's easy to follow it inside or out. So just put the middle one in there, and then you can just go round and finish the circle, complete the circle, and then move out and complete another circle. You can mix your colours up with that. You can change your spacing in it. That looks quite nice as well, to have a couple rows close together and some further apart. So the circles do look really lovely as well. And then you can do this offset one. I thought this was quite fun. So you do your first circle, you can see the blue pen there where I've marked the first one, and then the next one I've just followed it out. So I've started these stitches really close together here and just come out and back in again there. So these are still sort of circular shapes, but just staying close together at the top and further apart as you go down. and you can decide how wide these get. You could do great big ones, they could look really lovely, and you can overlap all these as well. So lots of different variations that you can do with your spirals and with some circles. So I'm going to show you a few examples on some pieces that I've already made. Now this little piece is from my 20 things to make with your slow stitching video, and these are just little face wipes on a little bit of nice soft fabric on the back there. And obviously this is circular to point that out, so I started from the outside and I've gone in. If I started from the middle, I end up meeting the edge over here and not over here, so this was a good time to go round that. And I've done a circle around the edge, and then I've started my spiral here, and I've pointed this so my fingers aren't in the way, started it here and come around into the middle, and going outside to in tends to be a little bit better tension for some reason. I think when you're doing those first 2 stitches, it's easy to pull them really tight and it all pulls up together. So if you've got quite a tight tension, you're a bit stressed, go outside to in, not inside to out. This is quite cute. This is a little bag I made with some friends recently, and you can see the spirals on here. So that's the bag as it shuts, but if I open it on the back, so there's a big orange one in the middle, so really nice just to go straight over everything with these. And this is a variegated thread as well, so I've got the different patterns underneath and the threads changing colour as well. Quite a lot going on, but really lovely, and it just gives some rigidity to that bag. It makes it nice and stiff so it can act as a bag if you like. And I started in the middle here all the way to the outside here. There's another little one up here as well. We've got one down here, goes over the edge there, and a little one here as well. So sort of put them all next to each other, and it makes that really lovely texture. So different colours, different sizes, and just put them all in a big group together. So this is one of my little Norwegian landscapes. We have a video on how to make these as well if you like this landscape here. And I just wanted to show you on here because I tried to make a texture with this. I made a sort of cloud sky texture with it, and you can see these spirals. Hopefully you can see these spirals here. And then this one I started tighter and got bigger, and they come around here and off over there. There's some little ones in here. This actually goes around there and makes another one there, like a little sort of figure of 8. And there's some little teeny ones over here and one over here as well. So I've used it in this instant to try and create some texture in my landscape piece. So this is also from that 20 things to make with your slow stitching video, and you can see the spirals in this here as well. There's a little one in the flap. If I undo the little bee, there we go. You can see there's one underneath it here, and then I've kind of got some very loose sort of spirals happening as well, just weaving their way around. Straight stitches are nice, and they can make a really lovely texture and feel of the fabric, but just to swoop around the design and do these circles is really quite therapeutic. I do like the circles. And if I flip it over, there's a couple on the back as well. There's one there to the centre, another one here, and again some just swirls in the background as well, so nice to mix in with your other stitches. This is a piece that is ongoing at the moment. It's going to be a little bag, which is why it's in 2. Show you that side there. It's the same, but I've got some spirals happening on here. Now this one is, if you can't tell, it's going to be a water sea theme, and this is the deep water, and these are the foamy water on the beach crashing into the deep water. That's the idea. So I wanted to bring some of this into here. So the colours are quite subtle with this one, and I wanted this swirling water kind of effect as well. So there's a big spiral here in the cream, and then another little one over here. Might be a little bit harder to see. And then on the other side, this one's a bit easy to see. So these are these circles that I talked about. So just circles inside circles. I've just got one sort of that size in the middle there, and just gone around and around them, then left a space and done a couple more, put a different colour in it, left another space. So you can really do whatever variation you like with these. It's just to sort of signify water and water movement and water drops. So those ones are quite a lot of fun there. So another project in the making here. This is going to be another bag. This is a present for Caroline. She will actually have it by the time this video is up. So hopefully I'm not giving the game away by putting this in it and making this little bag. And I just wanted to show you this one because this is a sort of another level on from the little paper template. So I talked about the template, cutting that out and doing stitching around it, but you could actually put something on as your template. So I've got this lovely little sort of flowery metal sequin here, and I put that on, and then I've got some gold thread, and I've just done spirals. These are spirals, not circles, so I've just done a spiral around here, goes that way I think, and all the way around, and I've finished it there at the moment. I might go a bit further, so you can actually use something in the centre to help you make your circle, and use it as a feature as part of it as well, and leave it on there. So that one came out really nicely. I just wanted to bring in the sampler that I did in the 5 stitches for slow stitching video as well, because we did have a quick look at spirals in this video, and I wanted to show you this one again because I've done it on a piece of fabric. So as I've just shown you in that bag sample, I used a little it's quite big metal sequin in the middle, and I've stitched around it. And you can also do the same with this. I've got a square piece of fabric, and you can start on the outside to get your circle and come to the inside. So it's a nice way of attaching one piece of fabric to another piece of fabric, and if you've got a square one, you can fit your circle inside it easily. So just another option there of how you can use these circles with different layers of fabric. Now just a couple of more pieces to show you, because Jonathan actually mentioned this. We were talking through the video on how we were going to make it, and he said, probably thinking it was funny, how about square spirals? Shaking his head at me. You know, oh, what about square spirals? I said, well, actually, I've got a square spiral, and I magicked one up out of my embroidery collection. So here is a square spiral, if there is such a thing. Probably call something else. But you don't have to go around in circles, is the whole point of this of this conversation. So I've attached this piece of fabric here. So just as we did with the square piece and the circle on it, you can do a square stitching on a square piece of fabric. So I've gone around the outside. Now the middle is here, I think. So I've started along, gone down and around. You just keep going round, around, around. And then it stops under there. So you can follow the shape of the piece of fabric you want to attach. So you can do that with any shape of fabric really. So that is a rectangular one. And if I just bring this one in. This is a triangular one. So a triangular piece of fabric. I want to attach it down. This one frays quite a lot. So I wanted quite a lot of stitching in it. And you can see this triangular one here. So it starts in the middle and goes in a spiral motion. Just keeps following round and round. It gets bigger and bigger. I think it stops there, and then there's some stitches, row stitches around the outside. So you can do these spirals any shape that you want to do to suit your project and to suit the fabric that you want to attach. So if you like this little book that I have shown you, by the way, with that triangular spiral on it, you can check this book out on my other channel. Is Sarah Homfray Creates, my little space to play with some different techniques and some different ideas, and I talk about this book, so do go and check that video out. I'll put that up here now for you to go and have a look at, and don't forget the playlist for the slow stitching videos as well. Lots of videos on slow stitching if you've enjoyed that and you want to know more about that. Thanks for watching everybody. Give it a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.